India has taken a clear position that what Israel has suffered is the worst form of terrorism. Without naming Hamas, India has made it very clear, unacceptable. Do you agree that a red line has to be drawn there? That for all the history of occupation of Palestinian lands, a vexed, complex issue, the first step has to be outright condemnation of the killings that have taken place, the hostage taking, innocent civilians being bombed. Do you believe that you can draw a symmetry with what's happened in the past to Palestinians with what the Hamas has done today to Israel?
No, there are no two views about it. As far as what Hamas has done is absolutely condemnable. But at the same time, when you talk of the Palestinian issue, it can't be treated in isolation. It's not Hamas. They don't present the Palestinian issue by themselves. The National Authority is based in the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority is based in the West Bank. To an extent, it has suited Israel that you keep the two factions divided and they work against each other. But the problem has started from January when Mr. Netanyahu formed his coalition government by taking far-right parties into his coalition. There is Mr. Ben Gvir, who heads a very anti-Arab party. There is Smotrich, who has a hyper-nationalist faction. And so they've altered the agenda on which there was consensus in Israel for the last 30, 40 years, whenever the peace process was taken up. So that basic understanding has been changed. They were moving, and that's why they went after the judiciary. And once the attack on the judiciary started, of course, Netanyahu did it to save himself from corruption charges. But the extreme right wing is interested because they want to refashion Israel into a completely orthodox Jewish state in which the Arab will be a second-class citizen or the Palestinian will be a second-class citizen. So many of those proposals were moving in that direction. And the world has ignored it. Nobody has any time for it because agenda of the world has moved on. And in the meanwhile, the Americans started by bringing Israel into the mainstream and restructuring the architecture, the security architecture of West Asia. And that's where the Abraham Accords came. UAE stepped in, but the Saudis were holding back. So you had I2U2, which is India, Israel, UAE, and US. We had the India-Europe on the sidelines of G20, that there'll be a line going all the way from here, on land, maritime connection to Europe. And I said then, the fact that all the people sitting who announced this were there accepting the Prime Minister of Israel. So if you don't have the Israeli Prime Minister there, what kind of a deal is it? That problem is always going to arise. So this was always bubbling. And in fact, the defense minister of Israel protested at one stage, and he said the protests, large protests against the attack on the judiciary are affecting the Israeli defense forces. He was made to resign by Netanyahu. And there were more protests, then he took him back.
Let me
add one more thing.
Yes.
Just one more thing.
Yes.
The head of the intelligence told the government that if you don't stop the Israeli settlers from committing acts against the Palestinians, there'll be a reaction. So there's been talk within Israel that we've been really repressive. Let's not do this. Let's not follow this far-right agenda.